I'll never forget the day I found out I was pregnant. We'd been trying for years and thought it was never going to happen. So when the second line showed up on that pregnancy test, I couldn't believe my eyes. I even made my husband run out and buy 2 more just to make sure. All 3 came out positive. Finally, this was the last piece in our puzzle we were waiting for. It was like a dream come true. We were already married and living in our dream home with a big back garden that was perfect for adventurous kids. In the middle of the garden, there was an old oak tree that they could climb. One of the first things we did was put up a tire swing on it. We knew it would be years before he would be able to use it, but with the thoughts of the little one running around, we just couldn't wait. We had to do something. My husband was like a big kid himself. He wouldn't shut up about all the adventures he was going to take him on, even though I explained to him repeatedly that it would be a few years before the baby would be able to do things like that. I think he was just happy to finally have someone to play with and forgot all about the baby stage. Until Harry arrived. Don't get me wrong, he was a good husband and dad. He did a lot for me during the pregnancy. When Harry was born, I needed an emergency C-section and there were complications. It took a while to recover from it, so the first few months after Harry came home, Dan did nearly everything for him, from night feeds to changing diapers, which must have been hard. He's one of the most impatient people I know, so it was a bit of a challenge. It took a little bit of time for us both to adjust, I suppose. There were plenty of stressful days and sleepless nights too, but when I was back on my feet, we managed to get into our own rhythm. After that, everything went smoothly for us. Well, as smooth as it can be with a new baby in the house, I mean. I think he was almost 3 months old when I first noticed something odd. I was holding him in my arms while feeding him and staring into his beautiful blue eyes as usual, when suddenly, he stopped feeding and started staring at me with this strange look in his eyes. Kind of like he was angry with me. I assumed it was just gas and put him on my shoulder to burp him. What happened next, I swear to you, is true. I was rubbing his back when he moved suddenly and slipped off my shoulder. Luckily, I caught him before he fell, but unfortunately I pinched him with my nails in the process. He didn't cry or anything. He just made a growling noise. I gave him a hug and a kiss before putting him back on my shoulder. A few seconds later, I heard him whisper something in my ear. It sounded like cunt. I just laughed. It had to be one of his little baby noises, I thought, and continued rubbing his back. Not long after, I heard it again. Cunt. This time it was loud and clear. I put him sitting on my knee and repeated, "Did you say a bad word, cutie? Did you? Did you?" Jokingly, in my usual silly voice, he stared into my eyes without breaking eye contact, or even blinking with a strange look I'd not seen before for about 5 minutes. I thought he might still have some gas, so I put him back up on my shoulder and started rubbing his back with my hand. He started pushing his head closer and closer to my face until he was near my ear. Then suddenly he grabbed onto one of my earrings with his mouth and started shaking his head. I tried to pull away, but he wouldn't let go. It was so painful, I thought he was going to rip off my ear, but luckily I managed to open it before he got the chance. When I put him sitting back on my knee, he spit it out and hit me on the side of the face. He then smirked at me with a creepy grin. At the time, I thought it was just one big coincidence. I could never imagine he could have hurt anyone on purpose. How could I? He was only a baby. When my husband got home, I told him what had happened, and we both had a good laugh about it. But I never wore the earrings around him again. The rest of that night was uneventful. It was my husband's turn to get up with him, so it was the next morning after my husband went to work before I was alone with Harry again. It was also the last day of my parental leave, so I was going to make the most out of it and bring him to the park. He loved looking at the ducks. Before I left, I decided to change his diaper. He was not happy about it. When I tried to undress him, he kept kicking me unusually hard. I didn't know what was wrong with him. I'd never seen him like that before. When I finally got him fully dressed, he gave me the finger. I know what you think, just baby stuff. Well, that's what I thought at the time. Even though he looked into my eyes while grinding his, I would say teeth, but he didn't have any. For the rest of the day, he didn't look at me once, not even when I fed him. That night, it was my turn to get up and feed him, but I had trouble sleeping. I think I was just stressed with the thoughts of going back into work after the long break. I was just lying there when I heard something on the baby monitor. It sounded like someone muttering to themselves. I thought maybe our lines got crossed and we were picking up someone else's monitor, but I got up and checked on him to make sure. I sneaked quietly down the hallway so not to wake him, and looked through the crack in the partially open door. I was shocked with what I saw. He was sitting up looking around. I was amazed. He was not supposed to be able to do that for another few months, so I ran up and got my phone to record him. On my way back down, he screamed and frightened me. It was so loud I thought it must have been something seriously wrong with him. When I got there, I found him lying on the floor just inside the door. It made so much noise he woke my husband. He found me standing over Harry and thought I'd dropped him. I tried to tell him I found him like that, but he just wouldn't believe me. When my husband put him up over his shoulder to console him, Harry smiled over at me with, I know this sounds weird to say about a baby, but with a smug look on his face. After that, things went downhill for me. It seemed like any time I was near him there were problems, from screaming when I touched him when my husband was around, to pinching and scraping, or throwing things at me when we were alone. I'm sure my husband thought I was hurting Harry on purpose. He didn't say it to me, but he was always looking over my shoulder any time I was near the baby. I tried my best to improve my relationship with him, but it was hard. I worked long hours and he was usually in bed when I got home. The only time I got to spend with him was on the weekends. Even then, it might only be a few hours and I practically spent no time alone with him. Eventually, I felt like I had no choice but to take a step back from my responsibilities at work, which meant a demotion and a sufficient salary reduction. But at least I'd get home at a reasonable hour. My husband was very supportive of my decision. He said he was just happy we'd be able to spend more time together, which was nice to hear. For the first few weeks, everything couldn't have gone better. We were finally able to do things as a family. I even started to believe Harry was starting to warm up to me. He still looked like he was disgusted by me and tried to avoid eye contact, but at least he wasn't acting out when I was near him anymore. Things were going good until a few weeks ago. My husband bought a new baby monitor with a camera. The other one mysteriously disappeared one night after putting Harry to bed. I really liked it. I was able to watch him sleep and got into the habit of watching the monitor every night before I fell asleep. Somehow, I think he knew, and he didn't like it. He started sitting up in his cot, staring into the camera until I fell asleep. Anytime I tried to show my husband what he was doing, Harry would just fall back and pretend he was asleep before he got the chance to see him. The more I watched, the more it started to creep me out. It was like he could see me. I often dozed off, and when I awoke, I would see him scanning the room as if he were looking for something. Then he would quickly turn to the camera again and stare at me until I fell asleep. I always thought me and Harry's problems were caused by us not bonding properly when we came home from the hospital, and all the weird things that happened were just in my head. But I was wrong. Last night, I woke to the sound of Harry laughing. When I checked the monitor, he wasn't in his cot. I tried to call my husband, but no matter what I did, he wouldn't wake up. I ran down and checked every part of his room, but he wasn't there. I was really beginning to worry at this stage. I was ready to call the police when I thought I heard a noise downstairs, but he wasn't there, so I ran back up in panic to get my phone. Then I heard what sounded like mumbling. It seemed like it was coming from my room. When I opened the door, I was horrified with what I saw. Harry was sitting on my husband's chest with his hands over his mouth, chanting. My husband's legs were shaking and he was struggling to breathe. I panicked and pushed Harry onto the bed and started doing CPR. The whole time, Harry laughed hysterically. For nearly 10 minutes, I did everything I could to save him, but nothing I did was working. I thought he was going to die. I was so scared. By the time the paramedics got there, he had stopped moving altogether. They got to work on him straight away and found a pacifier wedged deep in his throat. Luckily, they got it out just in time. They said if I didn't do CPR, he wouldn't have made it. Thank God he's going to be okay, but he'll be kept in for a few days. The problem is now I'm stuck at home with Harry, and I'm afraid what he'll do to me. Thank you for watching this video. If you want to support this channel, we have a link in the description for that. Don't forget to give a subscribe, a like, and press the bell to get notifications. Tell us your thoughts in the comments section. You can also send us your real or fictional horror stories.